Clash Royale has been a game of rich history for years. There's been a lot of thinking and strategy put into crafting this legendary games. Some ideas working out and getting added, and some not, and therefore getting forgotten. So as one of Clash Royale's seasonal players who's also interested in the game's history, hence, this whole channel, it's my darn diddly duty to tell you a few facts about the game. So today we're going over 77 different Clash Royale facts that only the true freaks know, myself included. The Electro Dragon's back lights up in a sequence, letting you know exactly when it'll shoot. The Rascal's boy is actually bald, as seen in one of Clash Royale's animations. Yeah, you probably would have been better off not knowing this, but hey, it's still a fact. Back in the day, the Expo was more annoying than it is today. It used to be able to target air troops in its soft launch stages. Now, could you imagine that today? The Heal Spirit was one of the first cards to replace another card, which was the Heal. This fact has been referenced in its descriptions as RIP Heal 2017 to 2020. The Heal was the first ever card in the entire game, which Supercell has deleted because players simply didn't find much use with it. One of the earlier versions of Clash Royale before its release featured a roundabout in the middle rather than the two bridges. The game would have been completely different back then, but I think it would have been cool to see such an arena today as part of a challenge, or, maybe a different game mode. The Mini P.E.K.K.A used to have a deeper voice. What a distinguished gentleman he was. P.E.K.K.A would have been so proud. It is said that the Royal Ghost seems to have his throne under the arena, which makes sense because he is the ghost of the king, also the Blue King's dad, and dead troops are usually in the underworld, so it all makes sense. The Goblin Drill was inspired by an episode in Clash Rama, where goblins planned an elixir heist by drilling a tunnel under the elixir storage. A really cool reference.
We drill straight up to the surface, and we drain the goods so quick nobody's the wiser.
When the magical chest was created, it was actually magical. It had such great chances of getting a legendary card, and it was relatively cheap compared to the super magical chest. Nowadays, it just sucks. Man, writing this fact really hit home hard. The crossbow used to malfunction and attack your own tower. That was a very difficult Psych! April Fools. The bomber is simply a wall breaker from Clash of Clans, as noted in a loading screen hint that states, one day wall breakers realized that they could do a lot more damage if they threw the bomb rather than sat beside it. Imagine that. According to the knight's description, he is a distant cousin of the barbarian, and they used to have team-colored shoulder pads, which were later removed. That lore goes deep. The battle healer is able to fly over the river, which makes her an actual angel. Back then, skeletons would get deployed in a square formation with 4 skeletons, Larry, Barry, Harry, and Leedoot. Wait, really? Leedoot and not Gary? Anyway, Leedoot was later moved to the skeleton army, buffing it a little and nerfing the normal skeletons. The jingle that plays upon the deployment of the graveyard is an excerpt from the Clash of Clans battle theme. You're a Supercell OG if you recognize this sooner. Seriously, respect. While the Elixir Golem card description states that the card, quote, splits into 2 Elixir Golemites when destroyed, and, it makes sense, originally the Elixir Golem was supposed to look like this, and was also supposed to be a legendary, having a cryptic description that said, spend all your elixir to determine the stats based on the amount. A draft chest is arguably the most attractive and best-looking chest that Clash Royale has ever released, for when you played in Legends. In the game's early years, you could also unlock the ultimate draft chest, which offered guaranteed legendary cards and featured a choice system that players loved. Previously, you could log a bomb tower to activate the King Tower, but this has since been fixed and is no longer useful. Did you know that there was a legendary card in the game that was so bad that even Supercell called it trash? Back in the early times of the game, Sparky was considered one of the worst cards in the game, titled Trash Can on Wheels by so many because of its speed and also the fact that it was easily countered with 1 elixir. Sparky sucked and, well, sucks a little bit too when out of place. When first released, the Golem actually had a collar and a custom explosion effect. It looked way cooler than today's Golem, which actually just has gems and crystals on it. It's estimated that Clash Royale has generated over $4 billion since launch, with 30% of that coming from the US alone. That's a lot of dough. Today, everyone knows that the miner is untouchable when he's underground, but that was actually not the case back in 2016. In 2016, the log could push back the underground miner for half a second. A pretty useless fact now, but an interesting one nonetheless. Even if left undefended, P.E.K.K.A is unable to 3-crown a tower by herself. This also holds true for the Electro Giant Elite Barbarians, and to be honest, any other card. They would just be too good otherwise.
Back in my day, people used to combo the graveyard with ice golems.
The Ice Golem would have tanked all the damage coming from the Princess Tower, and after that, skeletons would swarm the tower, scoring an easy crown. But you don't see those nowadays because Ice Golem is countered incredibly easy now. You used to get free wooden chests once a day. Now, while it wasn't too good and gave commons and rares, I mean, what would you expect from a wooden chest? If you got lucky, you could get a legendary card, and that was the best feeling ever. While it felt good, it was a jump scare more than anything because the animation speed was quicker. Now we just have silver chests, so rest in peace, my wooden chest. Royal Giants could shoot as far as princesses. Yeah, not a single freaking idea why that was considered okay. Upon release, the Magic Archer sucked a lot. It couldn't even one-shot a spear goblin. Yeah, it was that bad. The compensation to this was his cool design, but fortunately for him, Supercell made him better, and now we have the Magic Archer we all know and love. Talk about a glow-up. The miner is actually bald too, and at least that's what it looks like, and that's a lot of baldness, though it makes sense. Ice Spirit used to freeze troops for a total of 2 seconds, all of that for just 1 elixir cost. As you could guess, that was pretty OP, but of course it got nerfed down to a 1.2 second freeze. Still, it's still as popular today. Just imagine how great it was back then. The flying machine was first created in Clash of Clans. You can see its supplies being teased here in this picture. It's also believed the master builder is the one inside the machine, which is pretty damn cool. Did you know that you could clone buildings back then? Yeah, there was once a glitch in the game where you could clone the Goblin Drill if you had precise timing at it. It was very overpowered. The log was very great back in the day, being able to roll much further, 11.6 tiles, and also knocking enemy troops back by 1.5 tiles instead of today's 1. But unfortunately, again, Supercell nerfed the life out of it multiple times, but despite all the changes, it still hasn't lost its popularity. People love that log. The Electro Wizard had a Crown Tower spawn damage statistic, despite the fact that its restricted deployment means its spawn damage could never hit a Crown Tower, though after the Champions update, this stat was removed. Clash Royale started its development in 2014 as a unique idea, and Clash characters found their way into the game pretty easily. In 2016, legendary cards were so rare that people spent thousands of dollars just for a chance to get a few. At that time, the best way to get legendary cards was through the Super Magical Chest, which cost 3,700 gems, equivalent to $37. Now you get a bunch of legendaries like candy just by playing the game. And wow, times have changed. The 2 cards with the most hit points are the Golem and Lava Hound. The Golem has nearly 9,000 hit points, while the Lava Hound has over 7,000, if you count the pups, but Inferno Tower kills each of them within 10 seconds. Before the game came out, there were no kings and princesses. Instead, they were archers and wizards, but obviously, well, because the game is called Clash Royale, they were believed to be placeholders. Kinda weird to imagine that though. The Ice Wizard's description incorrectly states his type of mustache as a handlebar, but it appears to be a horseshoe mustache instead. Could have been a mistake, who knows? There are just so many types of beards. Also, all of his voice lines are in the Finnish language, which is why none of them make sense, if you were wondering.
Lunta! Täältä pesee! Jäädy! Jää!
Hey, might as well throw in fact 39 while we're talking about languages. The Magic Archer's voice lines are in Chinese. The witch had a whopping 43 individual changes, making it the most transformed card in Clash Royale's history. She went through so many changes because it was either too bad or too good. There was a period when, combined with the Elixir Golem, the combo was just unstoppable. After a load of changes, though, the witch finally became a balanced card, although it's still very unpopular with professionals at a 2% usage rate in grand challenges. She's also pretty annoying to lower ladder players. If two bandits were to charge at one another, neither side would be damaged by the other's dash. 2 pluses make a plus, maybe. Bonus fact, her personal name is Juno, as seen from the Japanese set of the game. The balloon and the skeleton barrel rage combo creates the fastest push possible in the whole game. If you decide to clone this combo, then expect to quickly 3-crown your opponent. Clash Royale has an emote limit. You can use exactly 100 emotes in a single game before reaching the limit, and it stops you from doing so. Did you know that you could color your name in Clash Royale? If you put certain symbols in your name to trick Clash Royale's color recognition system, you could have any color for your name, which was pretty legendary. The original concept for the tornado was a butterfly spell, which was supposed to distract enemies, but it was never implemented. Though I bet it and P.E.K.K.A would have been a beautiful combo. The skeleton dragons were originally unlocked at Arena 12, but later moved down to Arena 4. The Dark Prince is actually the evil brother of the prince. He uses some of the same sound effects as him, just muffled, due to his luxurious helmet. According to game art posted by the official Clash Royale Twitter account, it seems the king is bald. Damn, that's a lot of baldness in this single video. You're able to still play the lightning card even if there are no valid targets within its area of damage, effectively wasting it. Good job. Before the bats were released, they spawned 4 bats instead of 5, but this was later increased again to 5. The Lava Hound is the only card in the game immune to all forms of knockback, as the only card that can knock back the Lava Hound is the Log, which cannot target air units, obviously. The Goblin Drill was supposed to be a legendary card, but was made an epic card because the card released before it was also a legendary, that being the Mother Witch. The Ice Golem has the lowest damage per second out of any troop in the game, dealing only 40 damage per second at level 13. But there was once a time where the Ice Golem was great, and we shall not forget our Icy Boy. If you set the game in Japanese, the executioner's personal name is Falche, an Italian word meaning sickle. If you've been playing Clash Royale for a long time, you remember that the game came out with only 1 deck slot. You would think that this limited the deck possibilities, but that's not the case. Plus, there weren't many cards at the start to begin with. When achievements were still a thing in 13,000 BC, you could attain a total of 1,804 gems. The Princess Towers were once called the Arena Towers and used to look slightly different. They were changed to look more like the Princess card in the game later on. The Electro Spirit currently holds the title for never receiving any balance changes. This is unironically the most balanced card Supercell has ever made. The 3 notes the Sparky makes when charging up form a C minor diminished chord. The Barbarian Barrel uses a used barrel from Goblins, which can be seen in its announcement video. The Magic Archer was almost going to be bald, again with the baldness, though this was not implemented, and in his initial sketches, the bow and arrow were the only magical elements. With the current cards in the game, you could make a total of 1,306,584,595,008 different decks. That's a lot of possibilities. Clash Royale used to have quests, like any other medieval-looking game, but later being removed and replaced with card masteries. Card masteries are much better than normal quests, and the quests were just a pain sometimes. The log was actually created by the Lumberjack by accident with the Rage Bottle. The log, according to the card's description, is, quote, seeking revenge by crushing anything in its path. Lumberjack, on the other hand, is hunting it down. The Elixir Collector is one of 2 cards that do not appear in the player's starting hand, the other being the Mirror. P.E.K.K.A's gender was revealed to be female, but in the game's Spanish version, she's mentioned as a male. You know what? I'm assuming that's a typo. Let's just move on. It's impossible to hit a negative trophy count, and also, you cannot drop lower than your minimum arena requirement. The Elite Barbarian's description is a reference to a song by Daft Punk titled Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. You also might have heard this in one of our previous videos about the Elite Barbarians, but pretty fun. 2 references in one. It's said that the Musketeer could be the 4th Musketeer that is missing from the 3 Musketeers. The same how in the original novel, there were 3 Musketeers, but one 4th one who was never considered to be in that group, called D'Artagnan, which was left out of the group of 3. Again, another interesting reference by the developers. You can play Clash Royale on pretty much any smartphone, but not Windows phones, which is kind of weird because you're able to play it on your smartwatch and even your fridge. And now, you can even play them on Windows PCs. So I don't get it. Microsoft, you're better than that. The bow that Magic Archer uses in battle is a recurve bow, just with a bit of magic. Max level arrows can one-shot level 1 3 Musketeers. Just a fact. If the Tesla is about to retreat and you freeze it, the retreating sound effect will loop until the freeze spell expires. The render of the balloon in the card's picture is a colored version of the balloon's old image in Clash of Clans. For April Fools in 2016, Supercell made a private server for Clash Royale YouTubers and gave them an upgraded version of the Tombstone, which spawned giant skeletons instead of normal small skellies. Not to mention that Tombstone was huge. It has been revealed that the Executioner is vegan. Didn't expect that, did ya? If it seems to you that challenges become more difficult after you win a few times, that's because you're matched with players who have the same number of wins as you have. Therefore, if you're at the last win, the challenge is certain to be more difficult because your opponent also has to have his final win. Hey, it's only fair. Now your brain has been filled with knowledge and my duty has been fulfilled, and that is it for now. But these were just some random facts, not really related to each other. Nothing beats the feeling of watching a historical video where everything is connected.